the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from offseason to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
What is up, TCC? What's happening? Hopefully you're doing good. Look, we got breaking news, and we need to talk about it. We do need to talk about this. We haven't broke a few of the signings that have been happening with the Niners, and guys have been going after because, well, you know, they felt like maybe 90-man roster fill outs and things of that nature. And while a lot of people might not know who Kemoko Turay is, and may be feeling like, hey, this is a nothing move. This is a nothing sign. This guy might not even make the roster. I think that this gives fans, I think it gives us a really, really great idea of what the Niners are thinking about potentially going into this draft. So Kamoko Turay, let's talk about this first and foremost. It's going to be a one-year deal. It's going to be a one-year deal. He's 26 years old. So this, again, another signing for the San Francisco 49ers, going after a guy who's 26. He's a younger, kind of middle of the age in terms of his age, right? Mid-20 signing, who has shown a lot of flashes, a lot of promise, a lot of potential. He was a former second-round pick. He was drafted in 2018 by the Indianapolis Colts. He's been in Indy ever since. That rookie campaign in Indy, 4 sacks. 4 sacks that first year in Indy with 13 quarterback hits. Then 2019-2020, a little drop in production. He had some injury stuff. He wasn't really available. Was only played in 2019 and 2020. I think it was 11 football games, 2.5 sacks in those 11 games. And then last season in 2021, plays 13 games, 5.5 sacks registered, 8 quarterbacks hits, but dealing with an ankle injury there at the end of the season. So this is a very low risk signing for the San Francisco 49ers. This is low risk and a guy with a lot of upside, huge amounts of upside. I'm talking about a guy who has in 2 seasons, the 2 seasons where he's played 13 or more games, 4 or more sacks. 4 or more sacks. So Bomber's asking, is this edge rusher solid? It's a risky bet because the guy has an injury history. He's coming off of a lower ankle injury from this past season. So it is a risky pickup. But what this may signal to a lot of people, what this may be pointing out, is that the San Francisco 49ers believe that maybe their D-line is set. Look, this kid he's got the measurables. He's 6'5", he's 248 pounds. This isn't a slow man by any means. This is a very deep, impactful rotational piece that maybe could fill a closer role if this guy can be healthy, if he can get some stuff done. But the Niners are signing a lot of D linemen. And this is why I thought, we should probably go live to talk about this. Are the Niners really going to address edge rusher at 61? Are they even going to address edge rusher in this draft? I don't know. It's interesting. And a lot of people, have said this is an outside linebacker. This is a linebacker signing. This is an edge rushing signing. This guy is going to transition and play in on the inside there on the D line. He's going to be playing edge rusher. And Robert just said it. So no edge rusher in the draft, I'm guessing. Maybe not. Maybe no edge rusher in the draft. So maybe receiver. Maybe they're going to make a move on the receiver side. Is this the final nail in the coffin for D Ford? No, Ronnie, I don't think it's the final nail in the coffin for D Ford, but I think this is maybe signaling to D that he's going to have to show something, right? That they're not banking on D Ford being available. The Niners didn't make a lot of edge rushing moves last year, coming into the regular season, coming into training camp OTA, so it felt like, hey, we're going to get D Ford back. The Niners have made a bunch of DN signings. Willis is back. Charles Omenihu he was traded for. Right, Kamoko Turay now signed. That there are a lot of Samson Ebukam brought in last free agency. There is a lot of guys who can fill that role. Kerry Hyder brought back into the fold, which means worst case scenario at times you can throw him out there. You still have Eric Armstead on the roster who can flex between both on the interior and the exterior. Although I think all of us believe this means going offense at 61. Ask Donald. Yeah, I do. I think this officially means the wide receiver position is basically, I think, the focus of this offense. Maybe it's O-line. Maybe the O-line is the focus, but it feels now that offensive attacking and addressing the offense at 61, or maybe even trading up at 61 to make sure you get an impact player at the wide receiver position, or potentially, maybe interior O-line, maybe cornerback. I'm not sure. I think the guys that we have seen at the cornerback position, I think guys like Dylan Parham and things of that nature, I think those are going to be the most likely of options for the San Francisco 49ers to address and go after said guys. And I'm seeing there, for whatever reason, Stream is kind of lagging behind. I apologize, TCC. I apologize if it is. Dude, the heads are being ridiculously driven. D Ford is a hustler / con man. Niners need to address that for real and stop playing around and address the O-line period, D-line and O-line. Well, they've addressed D-line, Clown Man. They have addressed D-line. They have definitely addressed the defensive line. So if you're addressing D-line the way that they have been and doing the things that they've done, you don't think that they're going to be going this route with the D-line. I don't think they're going to be addressing edge rusher. William Robertson, O-line, edge, cornerback, or receiver. I think edge is off the table. I think the Niners are looking at the O-line and thinking that, we want to get guys who can impact and do things right now for this franchise and for this organization. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for guys to do things right now for this franchise and this organization, right now for this football team, this doesn't feel like a situation where you're going to go the route of edge rusher. It doesn't feel like you're going to go after an Arnold Ebiketie. Doesn't feel like you're going to be going after a Boy Mafi. You're not going to be going after, a Nick Bonito potentially. It feels like the Niners are going to address whether that's O-line, whether that's Dylan Parham, or whether that's a wide receiving option. An Alec Pierce, a John Mechie, trading up for a Christian Watson, putting yourself into the category to help your offense out a little bit. They haven't necessarily gone as aggressive at wide receiver in free agency, and maybe that's because they're planning to address it. They have gone heavy now with the D-line. They've gone heavy with the D-line. So I don't think a D-line is going to even be addressed other than maybe a late-round flyer somewhere. It really does feel that way. And Jimmo Gorillo, I saw you said Lucas. Are you talking about Chase Lucas at Arizona State? Is that who you're referring to? Because I like that. I do like Chase Lucas. So let me know. Let me know who it is. We are still getting an edge rusher to become a starter in this draft, said William Roberts. I don't know if that's true, dude. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know. It feels now like the likelihood if you're going to go edge rusher, though, William, is it's going to be later. It's not going to be earlier. So maybe the gentleman Smith out of UAB is something that they're looking at. 6'7" guy with a lot of upside potential, but has a lot of development to do. Maybe. But, I mean, the names you now have in this room at the DN position, right, at the D line, how are they going to make the roster? How is anyone you're going to draft going to make the roster? Unless it's an impact guy. A big impact guy earlier than 61. Unless it's that. I just don't see how they're going to make the roster. If you're taking a guy in the 4th, 5th round at the edge rushing position, if Kemoko Turay stays healthy, if all of these other guys that are in San Francisco currently stay healthy and produce in this system, we've seen what Charles Omenihu can already do. We've seen what Jordan Willis can already do. We've seen what Kerry Hyder can already do. Kamoko Turay kind of fits into the mold of some of the guys that we've talked about already. We've seen what Samson Ebicom developed into throughout the season. How is a guy that we draft in the 4th or 5th round at the edge rushing position, how are they going to make this roster? How are they going to be those guys? How are they going to beat them out? I don't know. I don't know if they can. This is why, for me and Ant, for both of us, it felt like, if you're going to address edge rusher, you got to do it at 61. Because I don't know if the rest of them are going to. I don't know if they have these other guys in the draft that aren't, top 80 guys at the edge, top 80 guys in this draft at the edge rushing position are going to make this roster. This guy is not a starter, not a speed rusher, Tommy, but this is a guy who's depth. This is a guy who's shown flashes and ability to get after the pass rusher and hit quarterbacks and get sacks. 5.5 this last season, 4 as a rookie, 13 quarterback hits his rookie campaign. His rookie campaign last season, the 2 seasons he's been healthy. So look, if the Niners are going this route and getting young guys, 26 that were drafted high and have high upside and high potential, and thinking they can do something with it, maybe, Tommy, this is not a thing that they're addressing. And you said, I get you're saying no, it's not a speed rusher, but maybe they feel that Charles Omenihu is that guy. Charles Omenihu is the guy that can roll into the closer role. if Charles Omenihu was the guy they believe can be the closer, take over that D Ford-esque role, then they may not be going edge rusher early. And when we're looking at a situation where wide receiver is the pick, wide receiver is the route they decide to go. If you like what Alex and Ant do, hit that like button. I do agree with you there, Donald. If you've been enjoying the streams, you've been enjoying the content we put out, you've been enjoying the war rooms that we've been doing, hit the like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're grinding. We're grinding right now to try and get to 3K by draft day. And we got the draft party April 29th at Back Alley Brew in Galt, California. So if you're in the NorCal area and you're just finding this channel, we would love to have you come out and hang out with us. And we're going to be streaming. We're going to be watching the draft. There's going to be 20 beers on tap, free entry. There's going to be lumpia. There's going to be tacos. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff out there at Back Alley Brew April 29th. So if you're just finding this channel, you want to be able to come out and hang out with 49ers fans in the NorCal area and hang out with us. That's the place to be. April 29th, day 2 of the NFL draft. Especially if you can't do something like, head out to Vegas with John Chapman. If you have the ability to do that, I would suggest doing that. It's going to be a lot of fun over there. What they're doing, some meet and greets with players as well. So look, it's going to be a blast. We're going to have a good time. The defense is, what does this say here? The defense is going to be scary deep, said Ronnie. It is. They've done a really good job of making this thing deep. I saw HR saying Parag bargain bin hunting again. Can he do anything else right now? I mean, until you do something with Jimmy Garoppolo, you don't have a lot of cap space. So it's going to be tough. Paul Sanders saying, hey, my friends, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. I got to see you guys. We got to see you in the aftermath, war room aftermath last night for all our channel members and patrons. That was a lot of fun, man. We had a good time there. It's always fun when the Horst and Jay Hill are on. That's the first time we've had them on together. We usually have them on individually, so getting to have them both on at the same time was fun. It was different. It was a blast. But no, you're not wrong, Ronnie. The defense is going to be scary deep, and I'm seeing Sean said, would Petrie be available at 61? This is Alex, Sean, by the way. This is Alex. Ant is probably resting up still from his long night of work. But Petrie could be available at 61. And with signings like this, with more defensive line signings, maybe this now, a guy like Jalen Petrie is more possible at 61 than I think Ant and I would have thought in the past, just because we thought there'd be a really talented edge rusher the Niners could go get, and they may not be looking to go this route. They just might not be going to look at this route. They may feel like they have guys, on this roster already around this team that can just handle that role, that can fill that closer role, that D Ford-esque role. A lot of people said, we want to get speed next to Bosa. Maybe the 49ers believe that Charles Omenihu was that answer. We made that trade, and they feel like, hey, this can be the guy. This can get it done. I'm literally just waking up, Alex. No worries, Sean. A-okay, my guy. A-okay. It's all good. But no, some of the 13 D linemen could trade for 20 draft picks. Look, the Niners did this last year, right? They were loaded at the D line heading into training camp, and teams were calling about players. They were calling about D linemen. They wanted to trade for our D linemen, and the Niners said no. None of these guys are for trade. We're going to keep all of them. And they kept a lot of the impact guys, and they had some injury situations that allowed them to push and stash people in certain spots and not have to trade any of these pieces. I don't know if they want to trade any of these guys. I don't think they want to trade anything. A lot of these guys are on one-year deals again, just like they did last year. They did it again this year, one-year deals. So they're looking for the formula and for the guys they want to hold on to long-term. And Kemoko Turay is going to have an opportunity to come in here with Chris Kasarik and a very talented defensive line and stacked D line that is already constituted, and demonstrate that he has something here that could be used to the 49ers' benefit, could be used in a positive way and make him a non-expendable piece for the future, or come in here, use San Francisco much like Arden Key did, and then go out and get a big contract afterwards. This is something that a lot of young 26, 25, 24-year-old guys coming into the league who are coming off their first contract and maybe didn't produce or weren't as consistent with their original home, the original place they got drafted at, where San Francisco can kind of be the rebirth island, as it may be, for all of you Warzone fanatics out there who play Call of Duty, right? This could be their rebirth. This could be the place where they revitalize their career, and then use San Francisco as a launch pad, or potentially this be their long-term home if it really works out. What's the DM's name? He wears 97 to Michigan. I think the guy's a monster. Would love to have that guy helping Bosa. Clownman says that you're talking about Aiden Hutchinson, who is not going to be available. He's going to be one of the top 3 picks of the draft. There's no way San Francisco can get up there. No way. Maybe Turay can take the next step with the 49ers stack defense. You're not wrong, 420 Savage. Alex, is Hyder going to be Bosa's backup or play opposite of him? I don't think he's going to do either, Tommy. I think he's taking over the Arden Key role. I think it's the guy that's going to occasionally come in and play some base rundowns as a D end, but most of the time is going to be going in on pass rushing downs and sliding into the interior. Probably playing opposite of Armstead at times and rushing the passer. That's what it feels like. Let's see, Deebo for Jets pick 4 and take Karlaftis. Karlaftis shouldn't go that high. He shouldn't go in the top 4 though. HR. Karlaftis is probably going to go 9, 10, somewhere in there. Top 8, somewhere in there. I wouldn't trade 4 to draft Karlaftis. Trade for 4 to take Karlaftis, and I definitely wouldn't trade Deebo for pick 4 to take Karlaftis. Has anyone ever said you look like a young Mike Vrabel? Says Kittle Corn. Hey, listen, Kittle Corn idiot. If you didn't know, I actually was at Vrabel's house. Totally was at Vrabel's house and not family's house in the Midwest. Totally was at Mike Vrabel's house and spent some time with him. So yeah, I have heard that. I've definitely heard that. So thank you, Kittle Corn. Since the D line and those pictures are up on the channel in the community section. I'm just saying. Since the D line looks like it's getting settled down, can you see them moving up in the draft for a top wide receiver? I do, Ronnie. This now feels like the most likely scenario. It feels like wide receiver trading up. Everyone who's been talking about Christian Watson, this I think now comes back onto the table. I think the Christian Watson talk is going to pick up in a big way now because this does feel like the Niners are maybe looking at filling a position right now in the draft that they haven't necessarily addressed in free agency. And they haven't really addressed wide receiver in free agency. So 2 wide receivers in this draft is highly likely. In fact, Ant and I have stated as much. We would love for them to draft 2 wide receivers in this draft. I think all options are on the table now. All options are on the table for wide receivers. I think moving up to into the 40s is possible for a wide receiver, maybe even higher if the Niners are really in love with somebody. So we're going to see. I know, just a wild hypothetical driven dream, said Clown Man. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'd be great to have Aiden Hutchinson. It really would. It would be absolutely phenomenal. But what you'd have to do to get there, I don't know if the Niners have that ability. Trade up for gosh darn Christian Watson, said Tommy Huxley, except it wasn't gosh darn. HR no, try again. Deebo gets 3 firsts, 2 firsts, and 3 firsts, 2 twos, and a second, possibly. Deebo for 4 firsts. I'm listening, says Tommy. Wait, 3 twos, a first, a second, and a third. Oh my goodness, my YouTube's slow. It's okay, 420. It's okay. But do you think we can get high enough to get Watson? I don't know. I've told Ant I thought he could go as high as like 30, 31. I think the Kansas City Chiefs sitting there with pick 29, pick 30. I could very easily see him going in that range. Them taking him when I pick. They wouldn't take him at 29 because you can just take him at 30. So I could see him going at 30. I also could see him going at 31. Or 32. I mean, I know people have talked about, well, the Lions, do they need a receiver? Yeah, they could use some receiver help. They could. Christian Watson at the back end of the first round is not a risk. It's not a risk. And you don't know what's going to happen day 2 of the draft and if someone's going to move up at the start of the day to make sure they get the wide receiver that they want. So from any point from about 28 on from that draft, he can get taken. So if you're the Niners, you're not going to move up into day 1, but if you want to move up into day 2, you could get a guy like that. The problem is I think you have to come up to like 35 in order to do it. I just don't know. 40 seems like the highest they could come up without having to give up too much. We'll see. Jets have 4 and 10 and 2 picks in the second, said HR. Correct. But that's all you want? You want 4 picks this year in the draft for Deebo? That's it? Because I'd like 5 picks. I would like 5, and ideally like 3 ones. 4 and 10 this year would be great. Plus a first next year. And a second. Plus a third. Like, I'm greedy. If we're trading Deebo, give me everything. Give me 3 firsts, give me a second, and give me a third as well. Give me all of it. Because then I can take that third and deal and come up as well into higher into the second round and like just stack up on 150 players. Yeah, I don't see that happening. HR, I just can't see it happening. Don't you think this Deebo situation is starting to snowball? No, Bomber. I think the opposite is actually happening. What Deebo has come out now and said, 25 million or doesn't want to talk. That's what Ann and I said what he was going to get was 25 million. So he's now at the number that we said he was going to get, right? The reports were he wanted the most money of any non-quarterback in the league. Well, that changed quickly. It went from he wants the most money of any non-quarterback to $25 million. That's what we said the number. Like, that would be the number ideally you want to get out if you're the Niners. And if Deebo came down to that number himself realistically, then the number could come lower. It's going to be in the $20 to $25 million range. Probably more likely $22.5 million to $25. That's what you're looking at with Deebo Samuel. $22.5 million per year to $25 million a year. It'll probably be a base salary around 21, maybe 20 for most of those years, with escalators that get that thing up to 25. I'm not worried about Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is going to get paid. Jimmy Ward said that the other day as well. A few days ago, he came out and said, yeah, he's going to get paid. The Niners get deals done around training camp. That's when it'll get done. Closer to then. So we'll see. Jimo Garillo. I like a bunch of wide receivers. Austin, Watson, Moore, Mechie, Pierce. I love Pierce as well. There is a lot of wide receivers in this draft class. There's a lot of guys. Kyle Phillips out of UCLA as well. Fantastic guy. Danny Gray, Reggie Roberson. Both guys are fantastic. Listen, I'm not a big Sky Moore guy, but I understand the enticing nature of Sky Moore as a wide receiver. People really, really like some of the stuff he does. Khalil Shakir out of Boise State, fantastic. Jahan Dotson has some wonderful things as well. Romeo Doubs does some great things on film also. There was a lot of guys in this draft at the wide receiver position who have potentially high upside and could fit the Niners scheme. A lot. But is there a guy the Niners would be in love with? Christian Watson is a guy that everyone keeps bringing up, and they might really like him. Also, the connection there with Trey Lance is beneficial. So I think this now becomes the most realistic option with the Kemoko Turay now on the roster in San Francisco. Wide receiver seems to be the position they're going to go. It really, truly does feel like it's the position they're going to go. Donald Johnson, Tommy Huxley, if I was in the draft, I'd be drafted by the Jets. I would refuse to go to the NFL. It's hey, man. It's not necessarily a great spot. They have consistently been picking near the bottom of the draft for a while, or the top of the draft, for a while. Deebo is great, but trade him has become a distraction. Make Jimmy G a part of the deal. 3 first, 2 second-round picks. No team is going to take on that. No team. Now, maybe a team like Carolina would consider that, but how are you replacing Deebo, Abel? How are you replacing him? You're just not. You can't. He just does too many things. I would much rather keep Deebo, franchise tag him for 2 years, then let him walk in free agency, get a compensatory pick back, then trade him. Personal opinion. Just rather do that. I can get the compensatory pick back, and most likely a first-round compensatory pick back from a team once he walks in free agency, rather than deal him now. Franchise tag him 2 years and then let him walk. Better for your team. You get to utilize his skill sets right now. Now, if he comes out and says, hey, I'm not playing on a franchise tag, well, then you got another situation. But, right, I'd rather go that route first than just dealing him right off the get-go. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Deebo is going to get paid by the Niners. This is just part of the dance. Ronnie, I agree with you on that, 100%. With all the free agency moves, could the 49ers could do whatever at 61. You're not wrong, Olivia. My bad. Olivia. They can do literally whatever they'd like. They don't have to draft. There's not a position that is necessary for them to draft. They can draft whatever. But it feels like wide receiver. It does feel like wideout is the best option. Now, Kyler Gordon is a name that always comes up, and Kyler Gordon is a name that I really like. So is Kyler Gordon a possibility? 1,000% yes. Kyler Gordon is 100% an option for the 49ers. They could trade up from 61, get into the 50s, and take themselves a corner that is going to be very, very talented, very, very solid, and do a lot of different things. But it doesn't feel like edge is the option anymore. It really doesn't. Ant and I both thought this was very interesting when we heard the Niners were talking to Turay. When they brought him in, workout interview, the whole shebang, like this is a guy they're interested in. It's like, another potential D end who's in his mid-20s, a lot of upside, former second-round pick with a lot of potential that Chris Cassera can mold into whatever he'd like. Still got the whole offseason, OTAs, training camp to work with them. Interesting. I wonder if they're really considering D end, Ant. And it was like, it doesn't feel like it, but man, I feel like they should. I was like, I agree with you. I feel like they should too. The TN group is very talented, especially the top half of the board. Like extremely talented. Like come into day one and do stuff talented. Maybe the Niners disagree. Or maybe they just like the pieces they already have. And if that's the case, then that's why they made this move. Get themselves in another young guy who can develop, and maybe they could re-sign. And once they re-sign, well, then you're in a good position. But it's a 1-year deal. It's a prove-it deal for this guy. It's a low-risk situation for San Francisco. Details of said contract have not come out yet, other than it's a one-year deal. Newsflash: if the Niners are signing anyone right now with what Over the Cap is reporting, which is $1.6 million in cap space, then this is a very minuscule, tiny deal. It's going to be the minimum, probably 1.035 to 1.25. It puts them under the top 51 contracts. So Kemoko Turay under the top 51, which means it's not counting against the cap. This is a very team-friendly deal and a prove-it situation for Turay, who's betting on himself with a good team in San Francisco. Let's see. Never forget that Ice Cube knocked Deebo the F out, HR. You're right. He got knocked the F out, man. God, I love that movie. Friday is fantastic, is it not? Is it not? It's a great movie. It really is. Let's see. Deebo picked the perfect time to act out. The wide receiver draft class is deep, said Jan Stewart. Have you seen Marcus Jones against Alex Pierce one-on-one end zone play? I really like Marcus Jones. Jimmo, Marcus Jones is a guy that we absolutely love. And as much as I like Kyler Gordon, if the Niners decided to go wide receiver instead early and then go Marcus Jones a little bit later, okay with that. I think he could start right away. So there's that. I think he will sit out if he doesn't get a contract with Bomber T. If his agent was smart, that's probably what happens. But we'll see. We'll see. We replace him with a late round running back. Move up to get Trey's teammate from college. I think his name was Christian Watson. We replace him with a late round running back. What running back? I have one running back who has a Deebo-esque comp in this entire draft. One, Abel. And that's Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State. He's the only one who gives Deebo vibes on films in terms of how he runs with the football in his hand. Only one. You're not getting him late. You have to get him early. That's the problem. The problem is with the type of talent that Deebo is, do you draft the Deebo in the second round? Deebo's playstyle you're not going to find later in the draft. You're not going to find that. You find that at the top end of the drafts because it's a top-end skill set. It's a top-end skill set. The vision, the speed in which he plays with, his ability to get to top speed quickly, the physicality with which he runs, knows when to turn up field, when to try and bounce and make things happen, when to be shifty, and when to just lower his shoulder and run through. You're not going to find that late. You're not. Elijah Mitchell was great last year for the San Francisco 49ers. Elijah Mitchell didn't run the ball the way Deebo Samuel did. Different. Raheem Mosterts don't grow on trees, right? The breakaway speed, it doesn't grow on trees. It's really hard to find someone who has the combination of vision and speed necessary to do the things that Deebo has done and do the things that Raheem Mostert did. And even Deebo did them different than Mostert. They're different types of runners. But you're not going to get Deebo Samuel type talent that can do the same things Deebo did the way he did them late in this draft. It's going to take a couple of guys. You're going to have to replace Deebo with a handful of guys, right? You have to hit on 2 or 3 guys to replace what Deebo does as a guy in the short aspect of the field in terms of the screen game, what he does over the middle of the field, run after catch ability, and then the ability with the football in his hands, running the ball. Like, that's 3 guys you have to find to replace that because you're not going to find one guy who can do all of them. You're just not. That's what makes it so hard to want to move off of Deebo because you need a multitude of picks, and then you have to hit on all of those picks. If you don't hit on those picks, then you didn't replace Deebo, and you're going to falter and fail as a franchise. You can get Watson without trading Deebo, said Tommy. Yeah, possibly. It depends on if he's going to go in the back end of the first. If you're the Niners, you're not making a trade on day one of the draft. Because if the receiver that you like goes at the back end of the first round and you've already traded up, you're sitting there with your hands in your pants, like you got all excited and nothing's happening. You just don't want that. It's not necessary. Niners have plenty of draft capital to trade to the late first or early second round to grab him. You're not going to trade into the late first. You're just not going to do that. Because the teams that are there know what San Francisco needs. So if they're trading up to that spot, they know what they're going to get. They're going to ask for too much. Especially with all the talent that's there. You know, a team like Kansas City needs a wide receiver. They're not going to let San Francisco trade up for a wideout without having to give up another first round pick themselves. Like, they're just not going to do it. Why would you? Just take the wide receiver yourself and let him develop. How would you feel if we draft edge at 61? Robert, confused. Confused if we draft the edge at 61. Confused, but also understanding that the Niners took the best available guy on the board. Right? If they went edge at 61, then the guy they wanted wasn't there, and they took the best talent available. And now they have options. Now a trade becomes more likely if you draft an edge with all the moves they've made. Niners lately have been patient in offseason and go berserk in the draft. I think Jimmy gets traded and Deebo gets signed, says Nicholas. I think Deebo's getting signed closer to training camp, but Ant and I have said the most likely scenario at this point in time for Jimmy Garoppolo is draft day or once he gets cleared from his physical. Once he clears his physical, those are the two most likely scenarios in which Jimmy could get traded. Those are the options there. A Deebo is irreplaceable, no player like him. A physical freak, said Tommy, and you are not wrong, Tommy. Will Watson fall to the second round? You think, Alex? I think he can. I think, like I said, I think 28 is the spot where realistically he can start going, where teams would be willing to draft him at that point of the draft. So from anywhere from 28 until when the Niners pick at 61 is an area or areas that he can go. The further you start getting away from 30, the less likely he's available. So as soon as you start getting to pick 30, 31, 32, you start to get into day 2, 33, 34, 35. Like as soon as you start getting, the further you get away from 30, the higher and higher the chances that he's gone. So 34, 35, you might be able to come up and get him there. But I mean, keep in mind, I mean, I've done some mock drafts, and you don't know what teams are going to value. But in order to get up to that spot, I've had to trade away pick 61 and two third round picks in order to get there. So I mean, you can do it. It's gonna cost you some capital to move up 30 spots. But you might be able to get away with that. You might be able to get away with trading pick 61 and two third round picks. And if you know, the Niners have known that they're gonna continue to have coaches signed away. So if you're gonna keep getting those third round compensatory picks back, then giving up two third round picks, knowing that you got two eventual third round compensatory picks coming down the pipeline, might not be the end of the world. And maybe you do it. Maybe you make the move at that point. Will Watson fall to the second round, you think, Alex? Oh, no, you already said that. My apologies, Tommy. How do you feel about the offensive line, said Robert Cisneros? Look, I think the O-line is interesting. I think you have a situation where there's question marks across the board in terms of, who is your left guard? Do you feel comfortable with Banks' development? Do we like where Jalen Moore is? Is Colton McKivitz ready to elevate and show that he was worth the selection the Niners made? Is Daniel Brunskill the long-term option or just another short-term 1-year sort of extension sort of option for the 49ers? I think there's questions there. Mike McGlinchey's health, obviously a question. Now, all the stuff came out yesterday with Mike McGlinchey, and we're going to talk about that later tonight with our live Q&A at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. I think there's question marks, but I don't have, gaping major concerns. It's more just questions, right? What's the plan with Daniel Brunskill? Are you planning for him to start? Are you planning for him to be a plug-and-play piece? Is this just a short-term bandage thing with Daniel Brunskill until you find a better option, or one of these other guys that you draft that develops? What is the deal with McGlinchey's health? Can he be the guy we think he can be and that he needs to be, especially if he's going to be, getting paid $10.8 million? Those are all questions. But look, here's what I see. I've seen the Niners, number one, have a great success running the football with Daniel Brunskill on the field. I've seen Daniel Brunskill own one of the best interior defensive linemen in league history in Aaron Donald every time he faces him. I've seen Mike McGlinchey dominate in the run game consistently, time and time again. He's a monster. He's a monster in the run game. So I've seen him have success in the run game. I've seen him struggle in pass pro. He's much better when you can run said football. We all know what Trent Williams is. We all know what Alex Mack is. And the big question mark is Aaron Banks that guy? Is Colton McKivitz? Can one of them be that guy at the left guard spot? Horst is a guy we've had on the show, and Horst is, a guy that has been a part of the Cutback since its inception. And we had a members only live stream. I think it was earlier this week, if I'm not mistaken. My days are so mixed in together, but Horst said that he believes Colton McKivitz is the guy that they think is going to be sliding in, starting at left guard. He doesn't think it's going to be Aaron Banks. He doesn't think it's going to be Jalen Moore. He thinks it's going to be Colton McKivitz, because Colton McKivitz was the guy they turned to in week 18 to play at the left tackle spot next to Lincoln Tomlinson. So we saw Colton McKivitz get moved into left guard in training camp last year. He thinks the 49ers feel very comfortable putting Colton McKivitz next to Trent Williams in between Alex Mack, just slotting them in right there and just saying, hey, you can get it done this year. and we'll see if this is a long-term option here. So if the Niners truly do feel that way, then the O-line isn't as bad as everyone's saying it is, or isn't as big of a question mark as they say it is. But here's the thing, right? The Niners have gone into every season taking risks. Every season, they have gone into the start of the year with a risk position, a position that has been a little bit on the 2019. It was receiver, right? It was like we got this guy the Deebo Samuel, who we just drafted, who doesn't run great routes. You have Kendrick Bourne and Jordan. That's what you have. That's your receiving core. And then you traded for Emmanuel Sanders, and everyone felt a little bit better about it, but it was question marks, right? 2020, I think it was a PFF and a couple other sites ranked the 49ers wide receiving core as one of the worst in the league. And your quarterback got injured, but it showed like there were some flashes there, some potential. 2021, there were questions about the receiving room, and well, actually no question about the receiving room, but there were questions about the DB room. Excuse me, your cornerback play. You took chances there at the cornerback spot. People also didn't like the safety room either. They weren't big fans of Jaquiski Tart, and they weren't necessarily in love with Jimmy Ward. So there's always been question marks with the 49ers, and they've continually adjusted how they build their roster. The question now is, will this bite him in the butt? Because people feel like the cornerback position bit him in the butt last year in the NFC Championship game. I don't know if that's necessarily all of it, and it definitely wasn't necessarily the greatest performance from some of our cornerbacks, but maybe. But they're willing to take risks. Right now, you have questions at the safety position. You have questions at the nickel corner spot specifically, and you have questions with the O-line. And all of those questions are valid. Every single one of them. But how are they going to address it? Because they can fill all of those needs in the draft if they wanted to. The problem is you may not take the best available player in order to do that. In order to fill the interior O-line spot, wherever they decide to fill it, at 61, at 90, whatever, at 105, you may not be taking the best available player. You may be just filling a need. And sometimes filling needs doesn't always pay off in the draft. Sometimes just drafting for need doesn't necessarily handle or resolve issues. Sometimes it's about taking the best available talent and then figuring out the rest in free agency or by trading. And the Niners have shown they will be aggressive on draft day, and they will make trades and move things around. Horse the handsome, said Tommy Huxley. You are correct there, my guy. Horse the handsome indeed. The Niners just need to hit a couple big draft picks. It's going to be hard to crack the 53-man roster. Ronnie, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. You really aren't. You have to. You have to be able to fill needs and hit, because you're not going to have a lot of available roster spot with this team. These guys have to improve the roster, the guys you're drafting. If they're not going to, they're either getting put on the practice squad, or if they were drafted high enough, they ain't making the team. Like they're going to get cut. They're going to get tried to snuck onto the practice squad, and someone else is going to scoop them up. So you have to improve. Abel here. Watson's film is fairly impressive. Kick returns, end arounds, etc. He's a big, heavy wide receiver too. He also could bring some familiarity to Trey and settle his nerves. He might settle his nerves. I don't know if he'll necessarily settle his nerves so much as give him confidence when throwing to him. Right? Like I don't know if I necessarily should throw this ball here. I don't necessarily have the look I want, but I trust him. So if I'm gonna take a 50-50 shot, I'll take it with a guy I'm familiar with or that I have a good repertoire with. So, I mean, that's possible. That is definitely possible with Christian Watson. Christian Watson does a lot of great things well. The vision he has of the ball in his hand, both, on end arounds, jet sweeps, coming out of the backfield as a running back, and, playing middle of the field, run after the catch ability when he catches the football on short intermediate routes and things of that nature. It's there. Big question is route running. Route running with me in the route tree has always been the biggest question. It isn't speed. It's not physicality. I don't feel like he gets bullied. I think he's got big size, and I think he could add to his frame as well to make him an even more formidable blocking on the outside perimeter and middle of the field kind of option for the San Francisco 49ers. It's always been route running. But here's the thing. That was also one of my biggest concerns with Deebo Samuel coming out. Kyle Shanahan kind of erases route running needs. I think he loves guys who loves guys who run great routes, because he can do a lot of different things with them as a wide receiver in the system. See Brandon Ayuk, right? The amount of situations he puts Brandon Ayuk in goal line, red zone, short, intermediate stuff where they need a little bit of distance that doesn't require Brandon Ayuk to run a fade route, right? Like most receivers who weren't great route runners in the goal line, it's just fades. That's what they run. They run fades because they're big bodies or they got speed or whatever. They can create enough separation. They just run a little fade route, and it's all good. Problem solved, right? When was the last time you saw Brandon Ayuk run a fade route in the goal line? They don't put Brandon Ayuk out there to run fade routes at the goal line because Brandon Ayuk is a talented route runner. You can call pretty much anything you need to, and he'll get himself open in the goal line. So I think Kyle Shanahan loves guys like that because it allows him flexibility to call whatever he'd like to call in the red zone. But you don't need it. You don't need it. And if you can add Christian Watson into the mix with a team like this, now you have the ability to isolate one side of the field with a big body like Christian Watson, put him in one-on-one situations, or stack someone like him and George Kittle on the same side of the field where you got two big body guys against two smaller defenders and figure out where the mismatch is and then attack it. So there's a lot of things the Niners can do with a guy like this. So I'm excited to see how they address it. The problem is it's going to be hard because Christian Watson is a talent that a lot of people are aware of now. A lot of people know who Christian Watson is, and I don't blame them for knowing who it is. I wish they wouldn't, but I don't blame them. Not at all. Niners better do everything they can to get past the Rams, man, said Tony Martinez. Agreed. They got past them twice, though. They got past them twice in the regular season, including a game in which they had to win to get in. And the Rams were doing everything they possibly could to make sure the Niners didn't get into playoffs because they didn't want to see him again. He came up 3 points short in the NFC Championship game. 3 points. One player can make a difference. Also, just one play can make a difference. And the Rams did get weaker. Let's not forget that the Rams are not as strong of a football team as they were last year. They have weakened. I bet the Packers pick him at 27, said Tommy Huxley. You wouldn't be wrong, Tommy. You would not be wrong. Going interior O-line or DB safety with 61, said Frank. I don't know, Frank. I don't know. One of my favorite safeties in this draft, and I'm so glad Ant gave him a start, because when Ant and I find someone and not someone that he's told me about, when we both find somebody that we really like and then come together to have a conversation about it, or come on with you guys to have a conversation about it, and I bring him up and mention him, and he's like, oh yeah, star player for me, or oh yeah, this. It's like, okay, we both saw pretty much the same thing. And Marquise Bell out of Florida A&M is a guy that he starred in our safety talk that we talked about, and is probably one of my favorite. He was definitely my favorite watch of the safety positions. It was definitely my favorite watch at the safety spot. Very underappreciated talent who's going to be going around that 150 range. So he's a top 150 player in the draft. And would be a great option for the 49ers. Don't know if he comes in and necessarily starts, but I think his potential is through the roof. Potential is sky high for a guy like that, Marquise Bell out of Florida A&M. So I don't know if 61 is the option there, Frank. I don't, because I think there are guys later at those positions that they could grab and get, and they feel really, really good with them sitting in the system and developing. And the George Odom side doesn't necessarily feel so much like a special team signing anymore, because they didn't just turn around and sign George Odom and then, a month later signed Jaquiski Tartt. They still haven't paid him. They still haven't signed him. And they got 4 guys in the locker room already. I don't know. I feel like the Niners could do better in free agency, overpay Armstead, Jimmy G, D Ford. Those 3 contracts can go. Armstead next season should be traded, said 420 Savage. I don't think next season is the situation or season where he gets traded. I think it would be the year after that potentially, but I don't know. The move to the interior is everything it needed to be for Eric Armstead. Moving him on the interior there and playing him in that spot in the way he played it this last season, if he duplicates and replicates that again, he's not expendable. You can't move off of it unless you can find somebody else, or unless Javon Kinlaw elevates to a level we haven't seen. And as of right now, there's a lot of things with Javon Kinlaw we haven't seen yet. There's a lot of question marks. Right now, Bosa and Armstead are the 2 stabilizing forces on the D-line. You're going to keep those guys here as long as you possibly can, and you're going to try and find guys to play opposite of them. That's what you're going to try and do. They're hoping Kinlaw can be the opposite, on the opposite side of Armstead, and elevate and step up. And they're hoping guys like Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis can continue to develop, and Kerry Hyder can rotate in and do the things he needs to do. Armstead has always been a guy who's been extremely underappreciated for the things that he's done in San Francisco. Extremely underappreciated. Talk about a guy who sacrificed in 2020. Played out of position for an entire season because of the amount of injuries that we had stacked up. Played on the outside the entirety of the year, even though, you know, his skill sets translate better to the inside on certain situations. Just played on the outside the whole year. Didn't complain, didn't say anything. Just worked, grinded, did what he needed to do for the team, and his numbers suffered because of it. And then he took unnecessary flack from the fan base because they don't understand his role in the defense. Excuse me, not the offense, but the defense. He's not a traditional outside edge rusher who's supposed to be getting after the quarterback from that spot. He was a base 4-3 edge rusher whose job was to play against the run, set the edge, force things to the interior, right? And then on pass downs, move on the inside, and that's where he'd have his biggest impact. Because of his first step, his arm over move, his rip, all that from the inside, he's just too explosive on the interior with his length and everything else. Didn't happen. Bosa over Armstead is replaceable. Well, I mean, I think they'd like to think that Armstead is replaceable. I think they would like to think that. I think ideally you would love for every person on your team to be expendable and replaceable. But right now, he's not. Right now, Armstead is not. They haven't drafted a guy that can replace him. And there currently isn't a guy in this draft coming out that can replace him. I can tell you that right now from the guys I've watched on the interior for the D-line. No. Not yet. Not yet anyway. The one player in this draft that, in my honest opinion, will contribute immediately is Marcus Jones. Regardless of ranking, I think he will play 50 to 70% of starting snaps on defense in the nickel. Look, I think that's possible. I love Marcus Jones, Frank. Absolutely love me some Marcus Jones. Armstead, $10 million a year, not 17 or 20 million a year. Well, you pay him what he's worth at the time. The Niners didn't pay him that contract. Someone else was going to. Buckner was going to be more expensive, and we see that from his contract in Indianapolis. His contract, he cost more money. You weren't going to be able to pay both of them. You weren't going to be able to do that. You had Bosa that down the road that you're going to have to pay for. You had Fred Warner that was coming up. You had George Kittle was coming up. You can't pay all these guys. On top of Jimmy Garoppolo, you can't pay it. You couldn't do it. So you got to make choices, right? Armstead was a slightly cheaper option that was coming off his best year that they felt there was still something there that they could do with. And Buckner they loved, but you had a tough choice to make. They went the cheaper route of the two. And everyone upset about Armstead. I mean, Buckner was going to make more, right? We'd be in the same boat we're in now, if not worse. I don't know. You weren't going to be able to pay both guys. Niners did what they had to do at the time. Tough decisions have to get made. That's why I don't necessarily envy not being in the front office. I don't necessarily envy sitting here at home doing this with you. Because if I'm wrong, then I'm just wrong, and there's no repercussions for the franchise or the fan base, right? It's just all of the smoke coming my way, which is a-okay. I'm fine with that. I can handle smoke, right? You just get underneath it, you crawl under the smoke, right? You pop every once in a while, like, I deserve all the smoke, and then you just keep going, right? Sliding underneath it. If you're in the front office, it's your job. 100% your job. Oh, crazy. Oh, absolutely crazy. But look, Kemoko Turay, now a San Francisco 49er, a guy with a lot of upside. 4 sacks in his rookie campaign in 2018, 5.5 sacks this past season before the ankle injury, 1-year deal, low risk, high reward situation for San Francisco, and maybe signaling that the Niners are not looking at edge rusher in this draft. And now all the Christian Watson hype can come back. As the Niners are now getting ready, right? They're going to be going after a wide receiver. They're going to be going after a top guy. I don't understand the hate on Armstead. Dude has been getting better every year and is a beast. Robert, I love me some Eric Armstead. I'm biased, 420 Savage. I apologize. I love me some Eric Armstead. Do I love Eric Armstead more than Nick Bosa in terms of like what they do on the field? No. Nick Bosa is one of the best players in the league at his position. If not just one of the best players in the league, period. And Jag with the $5 super chat. Hey, TCC, when Lynch told us that we had money put away for Bosa and Deebo, weren't they aware that they would ask for top money? Bosa will be more money. You're right. He did. They did. Ant and I said this. The number was always going to be about $25 million for Deebo Samuel. Looks like it's going to be $25 million for Deebo Samuel. He's come out and said as much. The Niners going this route with Kemoko Turay means that I don't know if they plan on spending money on a free agent here in the draft. They may be saving that up for Bosa for now. We're going to see. We're going to see. Is it normal for skilled wide receiver on teams to do what Deebo is doing? I don't know what Deebo's doing, though, David. What do you mean, David? What is Deebo doing? What is he doing? What is he doing that you're upset about? Because I don't know what it is. because everyone is gleaming that Deebo has done or said something on social media. But the last time I checked, he hasn't really said anything. He hasn't said anything. And taking pictures down doesn't mean anything. Right? Like, what happened with Kyler Murray? Like, Kyler Murray took his pictures down and then said something, right? He took his pictures down and then said something. And then when contract negotiations started, then he put his pictures back up. Deebo hasn't said anything. He hasn't been like, I'm unhappy with it. Like, he's just saying, I want $25 million a year. I don't know. He wasn't following them on Twitter, David. That report was overblown. So he was actually never following, I think it was Instagram is what it was. He was never following the 49ers on Instagram. And then it got reported that he had unfollowed them on Instagram. And then they got corrected. Actually, he was never following. And then once all that happened, then it snowballed. Then he took down his profile picture. Then he started removing other things. I think it was specifically a troll, right? It's like, you want something to talk about? 49ers beat writers. Talking heads. You want something to talk about? Here you go. Here's something to talk about. Now I'll unfollow on Twitter. Now I'll do this. I think Deebo wants to get away from being associated with San Francisco on social media. What have we heard from Deebo Samuel consistently? These were some dumb questions in press conferences. Not everything that I post about on social media has to do with the team I'm playing for. I think he is sick and tired of people taking everything that he tweets and correlating it to something with the football team he plays for, with the sport he plays for. Like, that's for him. He doesn't come on Twitter to talk about football with people. Like, that's not what he's on Twitter for. That's not what he's doing it for. Instagram, social, it's not for that. He ain't doing it for that, especially in the offseason. Charles Omenihu the other day tweeted something about the University of Texas and guys in the locker room coming out and saying things about teammate. And he said, hey, you're going to talk to your teammates about something. Do it in the locker room. Don't do it on social media. And 49ers Twitter immediately was like, who is he talking about in San Francisco? And he had to put out a clarification tweet. I'm not talking about my current team. I'm talking about my past, like my college, University of Texas, things that are going on there. And then George Kittle tweeted out a loving, thanks for clarifying, because they all knew it had nothing to do with San Francisco and had everything to do with that. This is what people are looking for things to talk about right now. People are bored. 49ers Twitter is bored. Beat writers are bored. The only people here who aren't bored are right here at the TCC and us in the 49ers Cutback. We're not bored because we know what we want to talk about. We have a great understanding of what's going on and are very excited about all the do different things that we're doing for you all in chat. For all of our Cutback crew members across the globe, and for ourselves as well. The things that we're doing with the show. We're not bored. So we haven't talked about the Charles Omenihu situation because there's no situation. But people are going out of their way to find things to talk about. Out of their way. I think Deebo's sick of it. I think he's trolling back. I think Deebo's having fun with it now. It's like, everything's a story? Well, here, let me give you here's an actual story. Let me delete all my pictures on social media. Got a lot of trollers around here. There's a lot of trollers everywhere, Travis. You ain't wrong. Deebo just had his mind wine warped by marketing schemes by his agent, put the table on for him. Maybe. The whole unfollowing Twitter. I saw that already. Yeah, I'm not sure there. But it wasn't just Armstead for Buckner. It was keeping 3 players, vice 1. Frank, you were correct. That's what I mean, is right. They saved the money by going the Armstead route rather than the Buckner route, and then allowed them to bring back Jimmy Ward and a handful of other guys. So the Niners have always, the cliche, right? They've done what's best for business. Gonna do what's best for business. That's what they've been doing. It's not easy. It's not an easy choice to make, and you're always gonna piss somebody off. I really like Danny Gray a bit later in the draft. Said Sean, agreed. 100% agreed. Buckner said he would have negotiated the contract to lower to stay in San Francisco. Jan, that's correct, but it still wouldn't have been lower than Armstead's number. It wouldn't have been lower than Armstead's number. Buckner had shown more over a longer period of time. And it's one thing to say it, it's another thing for it to get done. Here's what I'll tell you. If the Niners truly believed that Buckner was going to lower the number around what it needed to be, around the Armstead number, if he was going to take Armstead-like money, then the Niners would have kept Buckner and they probably would have traded Armstead. But they didn't think, honestly, he was going to take that kind of money. And they also could get a first-round pick for Buckner where they couldn't get that for Eric Armstead at the time. There it is. There it is. Travis, Matthew is a he's a Jets fan. So, of course, he wants Deebo Samuel to be traded to the Jets. That's why he's saying it, Travis. He ain't trolling. He really wants Deebo Samuel with the New York Jets. That's what he wants. I feel bad for Lance. Not improving the offensive line is risky. See RG3 under Shanahan. True. The only difference was RG3 had a knee history problem when he got drafted. And, his knee was essentially held together with... He had a really shoddy ACL surgery, RG3 did, when he was at Baylor. The ACL surgery he had at Baylor was shoddy at best. It was shoddy at best. When the damage actually got done, there was I remember a report that came out that said it seemed like his ACL was held together with chewing gum and paper clips. So it was hanging by a thread when he was in Washington. Deebo's our offense. Hate to say it, but it's true. Last year he carried us. He's the identity offensively. He is the identity. Offensive line, 49ers first pick. We'll see. 420 Savage. What round do you think we go center, interior, O-line? I like Alec Lindstrom, and that means it could be anywhere. Could be from that pick 90, pick 105 range, all the way down to like 140. 134, excuse me. Somewhere in there. I think all of those are options. There's a lot of good offensive line prospects. If the Niners go wide receiver early and Marcus Jones at 93, then you could see O-line at 105. You could. Let's not forget that they drafted 2 offensive linemen last year. You have Colton McKivitz and Justin Skule coming back into the fold with this team. Niners may not feel the same way the fan base does about O-line. They may not. They just might not. Look, TCC, I'm going to wrap this thing up right now. We have a live Q&A tonight, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's going to be a wonderful 7:30 p.m. Pacific time for all you East Coast folks. Right back here on the 49ers Cutback, we're going to be taking Q&A from you, talking more about the Kemoko Turay signing, as well as the impact that it may have and every other thing that is San Francisco 49ers news. We'll be taking all of your questions live throughout the whole night. Matthew Smith asked about Trey Sermon. You want to find out more about Trey Sermon? Come over to the live Q&A tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have a lot of fun. 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you're subscribed if you have not already. And look, we've been having a blast around here. We have another wonderful 49ers War Room coming to you next Monday. It's looking like it's going to be 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, but we'll see. We're going to finalize the details. We'll get that out to you as soon as we possibly can. You won't want to miss the live Q&A tonight. I'll catch you for that, TCC and the Cutback crew. A lot of fun chatting with you. A lot of fun talking about this. Kamoko Turay, now a San Francisco 49er on a 1-year deal. The Niners add another depth edge pass rusher here for the San Francisco 49ers. Another guy at the DN spot who can slide in and compete, do some things, be plug-and-play piece for this 49ers front. Will the Niners address D-line? Will they address edge? Or are they going to go a different route now? And wide receiver is now where the sights are set, right? They're focused in on getting Trey Lance some more weapons or potentially getting him some protection. We're going to find out. We'll see. I'll catch you all later tonight. And until that time, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.